So relationships. Am I right? I haven't even started. I'm already saying am I right? Okay. So here's how I think about relationship. There's three entities. And yes, I do mean separate entities, individual beings, so to speak, in a two-person relationship. One, person A, two, person B, and the third entity being person A and person B together. So, I'm no expert. I mean, I've dabbled in a few relationships, official ones and unofficial ones, potential blooming seedlings, and also some that were just all in my head. Anyways, so the reason I say there's three entities is because each individual person has their own identity. Before they got into that relationship, they had their own identity that they were walking around with on this earth with. Their own desires, their own beliefs, their own values, their own fears, goals, and dreams and aspirations. Before that person that they were in a relationship with got introduced into their lives, right? Now, the third entity being the relationship, because even in the relationship, there has to be mutual beliefs, values, understanding. There has to be this own identity. It has to be the relationship's identity that has to be created by the two parties coming in, right? Now, depending on the individual's own personal identities, that is either the third identity is either going to be created very seamlessly and very well and very easy and just flow really well based on their own individual identities, or it's going to be like a little push and pull, tug of war type thing, and unfortunately sometimes both individuals or one individual can get lost in the identity of the relationship, which is very interesting. They lose their own individual identity and assume and are consumed by the identity of the relationship. And when that identity is not being matched or assumed and consumed by the other party as well, it can be like this imbalance, also creating codependency and perhaps some narcissistic behaviors and tendencies as well. Personally for me, I value partnership a lot. I mean, a lot. Like, I love doing things with my partners. I love when me and my partner do things together that we're both interested in. I've had relationships where I've been interested in certain things that my partners were definitely not at all. And it could put a little bit of a damper to the relationship. I'm not gonna lie. It's not a deal breaker for me, having mutual interests isn't a deal breaker for me. Other things are deal breakers for me. But, having your own individual identity and knowing what you love and who you are and who you're not, and being realistic about that and being honest with yourself about that, as well as being honest and being realistic about who your partner is and who your partner isn't, and accepting them for who they are and not creating this character for them to fit into in your mind. If you create a character that isn't even who they really are you really dating that person, or are you trying to fit them into this mold, right? And unfortunately I am guilty of that. And you don't know it when you're doing it. At least for me, I can only speak for myself, I would be getting frustrated that the person I was dating wasn't fulfilling their role, so to speak. And I'm able to laugh about it now because I see the borderline, if not fully, the full ridiculousness of the fact that I made a role for them in my mind. And I was aware of it. I had become aware of it in my last relationship. And I was like, whoa, that's not cool. You know, I've created a character in my mind, and every time you step out of character, or you break character, I should say, I get upset. And that was definitely a problem that I have addressed personally, and it's not a pattern I wish to or will be repeating in my future relationships, because I realized if the roles were reversed, that would really make it difficult for me to just be and feel accepted by them, because I realized they weren't accepting me. They were thinking I would fulfill a character role that they've created for me. In terms of like the relationship identity, like finding out where you're compatible is super duper important in terms of interests, spirituality, sex, drive and interest, emotionally and intellectually. Those are the 5 ways to gauge your compatibility. And understanding the identity of the relationship is based on those 5 components, as well as some other ones, but those are the main ones. In the individual, figuring out what are your individual, like how do you like to be emotionally engaged with, you know, what kind of sexual relationships you like, or sexual activities you like, what non-sexual activities you like what other interests do you have, what are your spiritual connections? Do you have any spiritual connections? Are you atheist, agnostic, religious, spiritual? And who are you? What makes you up? What makes your partner up? And where can you meet in the middle in a way that's cohesive and comfortable, and it just fits like a wonderful glove? But that takes a lot of self-awareness that comes with time. That also comes with self-exploration that is kind of interrupted when you're trying to figure out the relationship's identity. Because when you don't know your identity very well, when you don't know your 5 things, you know, spirituality, intellectual, emotional, interest, and sexuality, if you don't know those things about yourself, if you're not self-aware, if you're not grounded in who you are as a person, and then you're trying to figure out the identity of the relationship, it can be difficult, because you're taking away from time that you should 100% be giving into yourself. Now, if your partner isn't putting that type of pressure on you, like, hey, what are we need to figure out what this is. If your partner's like, hey, you know something, you do you, I'll do me, and the relationship identity will start to form naturally just because of who we are as individuals. Like if that's what's happening, it makes the relationship a lot easier to be in. But if one partner is doing self-exploration and the other partner wants to define the relationship, those dynamics can be really difficult to navigate for the person still exploring who they are, right? But if the person, you know, one person exploring who they are and what they like, but they want to be in a relationship, and the other person wants to define it and already is pretty grounded in who they are, and they're able to give their partner who's doing self-exploration the time and space to do that and not put pressure on defining the relationship, then it could work. It could be a lot more light, less pressure, not so heavy and rushed, you know. But again, that comes with a significant level of self-awareness, as well as not taking things personal, that, you know, one person is doing self-exploration versus relationship identity building. And so, you know, but that comes with time and experiences. And I smile because I think that these processes of self-discovery and relationship identity building can be difficult, depending on the level of resistance between the partners, as well as the resistance within yourself. But when you get some clarity, or when you kind of get the aha moments, it becomes super fun and magical, and yeah, a lot of fun. So yeah, and of course there will be times where there will be confusion and frustration and anger and even sadness, but to be aware of where those feelings and beliefs come from is really, really important. But yeah, relationships have three entities: you, them, and the us, or the we. And I think when the you and me, so to speak, the two individuals have a very clear sense of self, have an ability to let their partners be without having to let their partners be without wanting to or desiring them to define the relationship because that's what you want, and just letting them bring themselves to the relationships in a way that they know how or are comfortable with. Of course, expressing expressing what you desire is great, but without any attachment to it, or sense of control or responsibility to the other person, is what will make the relationship very light. Like, if one person is doing the self-exploration more, it's like 80% of their time and energy and money is spent on self-exploration instead of relationship identity building, and this person is very well aware of who they are and who they aren't, and how they would like to, not how that they are ready to build the relationship identity. Sharing that desire with this person is healthy, but to pressure that person to do it, that's when it's like, I don't think it's healthy, because no one likes to feel pressured into doing something prematurely, ever. But sharing that desire and communicating, hey, this is something I would like, and I see that you're doing your thing and exploring yourself, and I think that's wonderful. Whenever you're ready, this is meet me here. This is where I'll be. Now, if you don't want to, so to speak, wait for that amount of time, and then communicate that as well. And if you have to walk away from the relationship because waiting for them to come and meet you is not something that you wish to do, that's okay too. But that again comes with self-awareness. But yeah, so I think I will say, because I'm giving like my insight on that. Like, in my last relationship, I thought I was self-aware, and I think I was to some degree, and I think she was also. I think she was very self-aware of herself as well, but I think we could both grow in those areas, and I think in our own separate ways we are. At least I know I am. But I think that it wasn't like, she was still doing a lot of self-exploration, and I was more grounded in who I was. I still had to grow, of course, and do a little bit more self-exploration, but for the most part, I was a little bit more clear on who I was and who I wasn't, more than she was. She was still like learning about her interests and stuff like that, and I wanted the relationship to be more defined and the identity to be more clear, and look a certain way as well. And as well as I was trying to make her fit into my roles, which is definitely a no-no in my opinion. So, we had a lot of hurdles to jump over, that some were small little hurdles so we could boop right over, and some were really big hurdles that we were not skilled or had the tools to jump over them at the time. But since then, I personally think for sure I've learned a lot about what I want and what I don't want, and how to be more clear about my expectations, as well as what I want, and verbally expressing it from the get-go, as well as giving grace by giving space. So yeah, currently I'm single and feeling really good about it. Actually, very good about it. It's been a great time for me to just get to know me again, and take myself out on dates again, and do some much needed introspection, as well as address certain mental limitations that I've become aware of, so that they're not brought into my next relationship. So this is a good time to grow, to learn. Love relationships.